Welcome to the channel of Mike Flair. And today you're watching Mike Motivation, the best motivator in the game. And remember, when you're dealing with me,
There can be only one.
so let's get right into it. So I make this podcast for, let's say, the person, because I was at this space when I was younger. You don't know what the next step is. You in the inner city. Most of us grew up at, and you don't know what the next step is. You just living, just trying to stay out of trouble. And you get to a point in life where you find out like what I'm doing is not enough. I need to do better. I need to do more. Not from a standpoint of greed, but just getting to a place of stability. A lot of times when you're living in the inner city, you don't even know what stability is until you actually get to that point. And today we're going to talk about some of those things. But the title of today's is Can I Overcome the Odds Living in the Inner City? And the answer is yes, you can. You can. There are many odds we go up against. Single parent household, odds are against you. Inner city education, odds are against you. Having the resources, odds are against you. And then one of the things that's so tough is you make so much money, you're at the threshold to where you can't get assistance because you make too much, but the what you make ain't enough to really thrive as an adult. So it's one of those tough things you got to really outthink, use some common sense, and we're gonna talk about some of those. I got a couple of bullet points to kind of some things, not all of them, but some things you gotta use and have as a part of your logic and thinking. Living in the inner city and overcoming the odds. So let's go to our next slide. My first point is being able to learn from trials quickly, trials and mistakes. You got to be able to learn quickly. An old man once told me, not even old, elder statesman, just working with older guys, told me, try not to make the same mistake twice. Try not to make the same mistake twice. And that's not easy to do because you really have to study yourself. You have to know about yourself. And before I start talking about coding and how I got into that, I got to tell the youth is you have to learn about yourself before you get into anything. You need to be learning about yourself. And the next one is a part of learning about yourself. The next point is not getting caught up in perception. Not getting caught up in perception. We all know that perception is a part of life, but don't get so caught up in perception because a lot of times people perceive things, but they don't know your full situation. You know your full situation, but they don't. But you have to be honest about sometimes you can make the perception about you better, or you can make the perception about you worse or negative. However you play or however you move about in life, their perception changes. But when you learn how to learn from your trials and rebound and turn from it and not live off the perception that, okay, they're going to think this about me because I made this mistake, but you learn how to rebound and repent and turn from it and learn how to make your decisions based on what you know at this specific time. If you don't know, ask somebody who is qualified or can help you from an objective standpoint instead of doing stuff because of perception. Oh, I got to do this because they got to see me doing this. Or if I don't do this, they going to think this of me. I'm trying to tell you, If you don't hear nothing else I say, a lot of times people have their own situations, and you have to be a little bit mental to think that everybody's just sitting around thinking, or for me to think everybody's sitting around thinking about what Mike is doing, because it is not true. Everybody has their own situations going on. And it's one of the most humbling experiences when you can get that in your head and it's a part of your logic that the whole world's not looking at me. But I have to be mindful of myself, of Mike. What does Mike do? What is Mike doing? If I do A, it could cause a negative perception, or I could do B and it can cause a positive perception. But at the end of the day, I have to make that decision and live with whatever comes with it. Because you can do something that you think is good, but other people, we call it the herd mentality. The herd may think that's not the thing to do. You may decide to go to college, or you may decide to go do a trade, and it may take you some time to get it done. But the herd mentality was like, well, man, you only live once. You should come hang out. You should come have fun. And that may not be the popular decision. That's the next point. Being able to make the unpopular decision, especially if you do the research and you know that this is going to give you profit and gain, not just money wise, but from a standpoint of a stability and you can maintain. So let's say if you go do a trade, you want to go be an electrician. You decide when you graduate high school or even in your 20s, you can go just about any time and do an apprenticeship. It's probably going to take you about 3 or 4 years to get the work for them, learn, get the journeyman license and your hours in. So you might have to give up a bunch of free time. You may not be able to go out and hang out with everybody. You may not be a part of the crowd. But if you invest your time early and wisely, making that unpopular decision, not getting caught up in the perception, learning how to make recover from your trials quickly, by the time you get done and get your journeyman, you're well on your way to a point of stability because now you're in a trade or a skill that is valuable or is needed in this world. People need electricians. I mean, that's a skill that is going to keep on bringing money your way, whether it's some people just specialize in something. They don't even do just the broad field of electricity. They just specialize in one thing and it can carry them for a long time to come. So being able to make that unpopular decision, especially if you've done the research and you know that it's a viable skill, you know that this decision that you're making is going to bring you a gain or a harvest or reward later by fulfilling that. But you got to do your research and you have to understand where you live is not where you're from, is where you're at. And where you're at, what is the thing that the market is paying people for? You have to think about that. If you live in Little Rock, there are things that the market pays for. And you have to get out of the mindset. You got to reprogram the mindset by saying, I just want to do something that's easy. Because a lot of times the easy stuff don't make the money. It's the challenging stuff that makes the money. And I give you a nugget. A lot of times you can make something easy if you put in the work to learn it and really learn it and let it stick. And then you start developing patterns to make it more efficient to do. Another point is learning how to avoid trouble. That's one of the seems like this sometimes that's one of the hardest things to do, especially when you're young, between that 17 to about 29, is to avoid trouble, whether it's crime, whether it's having kids before you get married, and then you get in the system of child support, and now you can't it stifles you so much. It's really hard to really elevate because you got all the weights pulling you down. It's all kind of ways you got to learn how to avoid trouble. Just sometimes it could be as simple as somebody saying, "Man, come ride with me." Nah, I'm not doing it. I'm good. You have to be able to have foresight and say, if I do X, what are the possible outcomes that's gonna come from me doing X? And if I do Y, what is the possible outcomes of me doing Y? Or if I do Z, what are the possible outcomes? And some people will say, well, that's kind of extreme. But guess what? In life, if you can really hone in on this, it will save you so much headache and so much heartache by learning how to avoid trouble. It'll get you so much further. Because there are people, in general, there are people that because of decisions, even myself included, um, I've made some decisions when I was younger and choices that slowed down some of my progress and momentum. And that's one thing about being an adult. You don't want to lose momentum in your skill set, your education, your communication, and mindset. You want to elevate as far as you can, as high as you can, as efficient as you can, because the more you elevate, the more you can get to a point of stability and then maintainability where you can just maintain it at that point. The last point on this slide is understanding how to become positive in chaos. I think this is one of the things that is very hard to do living in the inner city because sometimes it can seem like everywhere you turn is chaos. Whether I'm talking about from a general standpoint, there are some kids, they're in some situations. It's like if it's not at home, it's where they hang out at. If it's not where they hang out at, it could be where they work at. If it's not where they work at, it could just be a random situation that happened. But how do you stay positive throughout the chaos? Some people like me have a sense of humor that's kind of got me through. Being able to be objective and learn from other people's trials and tribulations of what they went through to say, okay, I learned the data from that to help me not want to go down that path because he already made the choice and I seen the outcome. So that helps me not to get to that same outcome and help me not make that choice. It's kind of like seeing somebody eat a habanero pepper and you see what they go through. You see them burning, you see them sweating, and now you got a choice to make. Are you gonna eat the habanero or are you gonna turn it down? Everybody's different. Some people say, you know what, it's not gonna affect me the same way. It's not. I'm an asterisk to the rule, and a lot of times that's arrogance and pride. Sometimes can blind you in ways you don't even realize. You should ask Biden about that, but that's a whole nother story, whole nother slide. So our next slide, reality versus social media. Understanding reality versus social media. Sometimes I think that as a people in general, social media can be very misleading and very misguiding. You got to have some common sense when you're looking at some of this stuff and realize that some people are good at I want to say deceiving. I'm gonna say they good at selling dreams. They good at making stuff look more than what it is. They look like they have more than what they have. But when you understand how life works, you understand the stats, you understand um, the percentage of people that's actually making that kind of money, then social media, the reality of it start making sense to you. But my last point is everybody is not rich as they seem. There are so many people on here doing this lifestyle stuff They make like they driving this car, but it could be leased or it could be somebody else's car. They just walked up to in L.A. or something and snapped a picture in front of it and said, "I got a Bugatti," but it's really parked in front of a boutique or something. And they just happen to walk by to take a picture. People stunt on the gram. They stunt on Facebook. But I will tell you from people that I've known that had the kind of money, they was really low key. They don't do a lot of flossing. And they have nice things, but it doesn't stand out or do something over the top. They do what's within their means and what's maintainable. From people that I've saw that has that's affluent or whatever. So with that being said, the median earnings by industry. This is what I'm talking about. When you understand this, I think this is in Pulaski County, according to datausa.io. You can look it up, datausa.io. It says the median earnings by industry in Pulaski County for males is $46,083. And then it says the median earnings by industry for females is $38,864. Now, what I want you to think about is people that you know, if you lined up 5 people, how many of them do you think are making, if you lined up 5 people that you knew that's in your proximity, 5 of them, 10, how many of them do you think that's making the median $46,083? Just think about that. Even with women, like no, like working in IT, seeing different income levels and stuff like that, just knowing people that make those different income levels, there is a lot of people, the majority of people, let's say um, 75 to 80% is at that 46 or below, without question. I work for the state, where there are a lot of people that work for the state, and if you get to 46 or better, most of the time when you get over 45, you start to get into supervisor manager territory. And most people don't want to be managers or supervisors because they think there's a lot of paperwork or it's extra work managing people. And I can understand that because that could be a headache too. So there are a lot of people that work for like government agencies and state, just in general, that are either at that median or below that. So let me know in the comments, how many people do you think, do you know, that's above that? A lot of times when people is above that, they don't even talk about how much they make because of the hate or the shade that you get from other people, because you're above the median. You know, you in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and some people above that. But last time I looked up, I think the top 5%, maybe even five, maybe 2% of people is making 6 figures or better. 2% is not a lot of people, guys. That's like saying if Pulaski County had maybe Little Rock maybe had 200,000 people, maybe only 1,000 people, at the most 2,000 people out of 200,000 people is probably making 80,000, maybe probably what 90,000 and above, if that many people. Because like I say, Little Rock is not a big city, so you have to factor that in. in most of the fields, and that's everybody as a whole. When you start getting to minorities, you start getting to other races, that number start declining super fast. Super fast. So that's why I don't really fall for a lot of this stuff that people be doing on the gram and stuff, man. Some of it be cool 'cause they got like nice cameras and stuff. When you understand how much a lot of that stuff costs, what it costs to make that or produce stuff like that, it'll blow your mind. You be like, how much they spending on that? Good night. But some people do that to maintain the image. So let me know in the comments what you think about that. Next topic. This might be the last slide. Getting to overcome the odds. I want you to look at this graphic. I want to see if I can make it bigger. Getting out of the inner city can be like a marathon. Everybody starts, however, not everybody finishes. And I want you to think about that. Think about how many people start a marathon. It'd be like hundreds of people. But when they get to the finish line, it only be like 5 or 10 people that really finish, get like in the top 3 to 5 people that finish. Because not everybody wants to endure what it takes to run the marathon. El- Wise people, elder statesmen always told me that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. A lot of times when you're young, you think you can get there fast, but it's really a marathon. And what you do along to prepare for the marathon along the way really will show when you get to the finish line of the marathon before you start the next race. Your results will always speak for themselves. You may not see people for years, but your results, how you take care of yourself, it'll show. How you take care of your career or your education, that will show. Being stable, providing stability for your family, those results will show. Even if people don't even want to accept it, the results still speak for themselves. That's why it's not important to get caught up in perception, because sometimes people perception is based on what they know, and they may not know if you in finance. They might not know about finance, but their perception may be a little skewed about finance because they never worked in it. Like me, I work in IT. A lot of people don't know what I do. They just know I work in IT, but their perception could be they just work in IT. They don't know. And that's fine. It's no problem. Everybody's entitled to have their own opinion, but the results are the results, and you can't change the results, good or bad. Like I said, I've made plenty of mistakes, and I would tell anybody if you say you never made a mistake, are you really living or are you walking on eggshells everywhere you go? Because part of overcoming the odds is outliving your mistakes. And you can outlive your mistakes when you get back on the track and start making good decision after good decision after good decision. And next thing you know, you're further and further from what's behind you with good decisions after good decision. Will you be perfect? No, you don't. But you're not trying to be perfect. You're striving to be better each day. Strive to be better each day. Strive to make good decisions. If you have to slow down and think, that's what I have to do. Slow down and think, because I'm a quick thinker, just like that. But I had to slow down and think. That's one of the things I had to really work on, is to slow down and think. One thing my personality, my buddies used to tell me all the time, my brothers, is that sometimes I don't have a filter. Well, I guess what? In order for me to get to where I'm at, I had to learn how to have a filter. In order to overcome the odds, you got to learn how to stay positive, and you got to have a logic in your thinking. You can't just react all the time. Take it from somebody who did that. I'm telling you, you can't. If you want to move up, you want to do some things, you got to be smart about your decision making. So, with that being said, remember that a lot of people start the marathon, they start the race at that one place, but not everybody finishes. And it's up to you as an individual. Do you want to endure the marathon and finish the race to get to the next race? Life is like a lot of races. You just have to finish the race to get to the next race. And sometimes you don't know how you're going to get to the finish line. You may be dog tired, but you got to the finish line. You endured it. Sometimes it may not feel good. Sometimes you got to cry to the finish line. Guess what? Keep crying and keep on moving. Don't stop moving. Don't lose the momentum. Because when you lose the momentum and you completely stop, now you got to start back up again. You lost the momentum. So, with that being said, be sure to check out the Mike Flair podcast on this channel, whether on Facebook or on my YouTube channel, Mike Flair. YouTube at Mike Flair. Mr. Mike Flair on Instagram, Mr. Mike Flair on Twitter, where I make clips, do all sorts of content, but I really have to hone in on this because I really want to give back insight to the youth. If any youth that want to do tech, that's one of my future endeavors, to really drive home the tech side of the tech side in the inner city. There's a lot of kids. Some kids don't want to do sports. Some kids just want to be academic. Some kids maybe just want to do tech. I want to be able to have a place that kids can come and learn tech, and we can talk about life, how to navigate in tech. But before I get to that, I want to make these content pieces about how to overcome the odds, living in the inner city, but still being able to excel and elevate. But you have to really work on yourself as an individual and do some reprogramming. Because sometimes you just got to survive. Then once you survive, now it's time to get into excel mode and elevate through education, because that's the only resource you have when you come from the inner city. You don't have an inheritance. You don't have a lump sum of money. The only thing you have is time. Your decision making and time is what is your best asset when you're coming out the inner city, in my opinion. So with that being said, I'm about to get ready to sign out. Make sure you subscribe to the Mike Flair channel, and also subscribe to my podcast channel that we do, Corp Tech Media, CTM TV. Make sure to go on YouTube and subscribe to that as well. Thank everybody for watching. Thanks for subscribing. This is Mike from Mike Motivation, and I'm signing out. Thank you for watching.